Wargame anytime. Welcome to Any Wargame Anytime. My name's Buzz. I'm here with Daniel, and today we're going to be talking about the new third edition of OnePageRules, which has just dropped for supporters of the Patreon and will drop to the general public in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's great to be back. Both of us were looking forward to this, and we finally got it. And
Yay.
yeah, exactly. And looking forward to discussing it. Some of the good, some of the bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think both of us, me and Boss, went into this not getting everything we wanted, but I think generally pleased. How do you
Yeah.
feel about that?
Yeah, I like more stuff than I don't like. I've got, 8 or 9 or maybe even 10 things on my yes, I really like this list, and only a couple of things on my well, I feel a bit shafted by this list.
Yeah. And I think one thing that we were talking about, Boz, is you are primarily a grim dark
Absolutely.
future player,
Absolutely.
um, where I see some of these changes kind of. I play Age of Fantasy too, and I think some of these changes are good for the Age of Fantasy side. Um, I think that we both have to. I think when we're talking about this, I think that we have to be very careful because we don't know the points, right? We don't know the armies that are coming out, so we don't know any of that point adjustment side of
Yes,
things.
that's exactly right. As you
Yeah,
say, we do need to kind of be kind to the things that we don't like so much and say, well, we need to get a few games under our belt with the new points and everything before we can really say, yes, this is good or yes, this isn't good.
hmm yeah, but for I love Boss put this together because I think for non-patrons, it's going to give them an opportunity to see what they'll be playing.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Well, shall we just start going through my list of changes that I liked?
Yeah.
Always good to start with the good stuff. So basically, I've had a read through the new rule book, and I've kind of compared it to the version 2.16 as well,
hmm
and just to kind of see, what's different, what's been added. And I mean, really, for the most part, I think it's clarified a lot of things that needed clarifying. For example, the first thing on my list is the ambush special rule, which essentially is the same. You can choose not to deploy a model and keep it in reserve, and at the beginning of any round after the first, you can place it anywhere more than 9 inches away from enemy units. But now it clearly states that you cannot. What does it say? Units that deploy from ambush on the last round can't seize or contest objective markers, and
hmm
that's a really huge thing. That was kind of FAQ'd in the most recent edition, but now it's, front and center in the rules. You don't have to go looking for it. You can't play those shenanigans where you keep your toughest unit off the table until the very last round and have them just turn up and obliterate a half strength unit that's been fighting for the entire battle and win on,
Win
you
on
know,
objectives.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. For me, I kind of would love to have them gone a little further and not even allowed ambush on the last turn.
I
But
agree.
yeah, but I think this is, it's always easier as people who don't to be more. I can understand how they're being a little more tepid, and I
Mhm.
think that's probably the right decision. To not pick the probably I think a more extreme decision, which is just to. So, but I think this is good. I like where they're going in ambush, and I think that they can always tweak it further.
Yeah,
So
I actually really like. I think it might have been sixth edition Warhammer 40K, where you had to roll over a certain amount to come in on the second turn, and over a certain amount to come in on the third turn, and then you just automatically came in on the fourth turn.
the fourth turn, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
obviously this is a 4 round game, so
hmm
maybe not the best thing, but yeah, I absolutely agree with you that more tweaking can be done, and it'd be really good if you couldn't ambush at all on the last round. That just seems a little A little,
This may be enough, and I think I like their approach. They are taking the more, what's the word, the more careful approach, and
yeah.
yeah, I think that this is solving a lot of problems, and it may be fine. Yeah, it may be fine.
Well, I'm gonna get a couple of games in and see how it goes. Basically, even if I've got kind of one model left in my 10-person squad and they've got a big scary dude right up in front of them, if they've ambushed on the last turn, I still get that objective. And I think,
That's right. Yeah, that's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll move on. The next one that I like is the addition of a special rule called counter. Whenever a
Yeah.
model with a weapon with this rule is charged, it may strike before the charging unit. So
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
it's so reading it for the first time, I thought, oh, okay, so that model gets counter. But reading it on the subsequent time, I was like, oh no, it's just a weapon that can have that rule. So it might not even be every model in the unit that has that rule, which kind of makes it a bit less powerful and balances it a bit, I think.
Yeah, and it may be looking at the new rule book, I don't see phalanx. And it could be that this rule is replacing phalanx.
It could be.
Maybe it's just they didn't put it in. Phalanx isn't such a normal rule.
Mm-hmm.
But I was surprised in the Age of Fantasy rulebook that they didn't have at least I didn't see phalanx. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe they didn't put it in.
I
But
didn't see
this
it either.
yeah, this could be. And I want to say I kind of like it in the sense that Phalanx was really powerful with really cheap units.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed some of these changes or more about trying to beef up elite units and kind of tone down and weaken a little bit of those cheap units that could honestly you just get a cheap basic infantry unit that have a quality of 5 and their phalanx is basically just as good as a quality 4 or 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see that. I think we play it out more, but this could be the replacement for phalanx that may, yeah, exactly what you're saying, maybe a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a few people kind of say, oh, but I slog my whole unit across the field and finally get into combat, and then it doesn't get to go first. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of get that viewpoint as well, but at the same time, I think, well, it's a special rule. It's going to be an upgrade that you pay for, which is going to be balanced out by something else. Like it's by and large, it's a very balanced war game. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
really too worried about a situation like that because there'll be something to offset it. Maybe there's less of those weapons in a unit or whatever, as I mentioned.
Yeah, we will see. I mean, I thought that I've always felt that if it is replacing Phalanx horribly punished elite heavily armored units, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a wound, right? So they don't get any armor save. So
Yep.
again, it just may be one of these rules that they're trying to say elite units in this game are just a little too weak, and they think maybe they feel that Phalanx is one of those. Maybe,
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Okay. Well, moving on. Caster is the next
Oh,
rule. It's basically instead of the
so great.
psychic or the magic or whatever it used to be called, and I think they've tweaked it and they've done it really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Discuss.
Yes, terrific. Love it. I really didn't like the last casters just because it really made the big high level spells effectively like comeback mechanics. It's like desperation moves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're only going for those 5 and 6 caster spells in desperation.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now you can almost kind of charge up. It feels more strategic now, right?
Yes,
You can
absolutely.
you can charge up, get your mage in there and then be like basically like a nuke. Or you can keep the mage back and casting little buffs here and there. So no, I love this. I was gonna comment on like it's funny they fixed something that I felt needed to be fixing, and like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel anyone was even bringing it up. So no, I love Caster. What do you think, Boz?
Well, it's funny you say that because until I saw the new caster rule, I didn't think anything was wrong with the other one. But now, kind of looking at this and having kind of rolled it out a few times, it's amazing how much better and smoother and more strategic, as you say, this system is than what it replaced. And
Yeah.
it wasn't anything that was front and center in my mind as needing to be replaced.
Yeah, they're really thinking proactively.
Yeah,
And yeah, and I've played games where my opponent, they're behind, like I have an advantage and they're like, let's start going for those 6 spells. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So love it, love it.
Okay, well, for the next couple, we'll do two and one. We'll do fear and fearless.
Mhm.
So in the 2.16 that's been replaced, uh, units with fear count as having caused plus D3 wounds when determining who won the combat, and models with fearless get +1 to their morale test rolls. So that's now changed. So fear is fear X. So fear one, fear two, fear three, or whatever, and they count that unit counts as having dealt plus X wounds. So you don't have to roll for it. It's nothing that you can. It's been taken out of the realms of chance now, which I really
Mhm.
quite like. And fearless, if you fail a morale test, you get to roll another die, and on a 4+, it's passed instead. And I can't put my finger on why I like that mechanic more than just adding +1 to the original roll, but I do. I do. It appeals to me in a way that I can't really put my finger on.
Yeah, maybe they felt that Fearless was a little too. So it could be they are beefing up their elite units, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this go, elite units, especially when we start talking about the new cover system, are going to be stronger. And a lot of those elite units do have Fearless, and maybe they really wanted to tone down Fearless now because what they've basically done is split it in half, right? They've kind of said Fearless, they've effectively made it like a half. If you think about it, it's basically like a plus half
Yeah.
your roll.
Yeah.
Um, I like. I guess I'm on the. I don't have a strong opinion about Fearless. I'll have to play some games with
Mm-hmm.
it, but I think I understand where they're going, and I think it's worth. I'm kind of just I'm neutral about it until I see where it goes more.
Yep.
But I do love Fear. I love the change. It also
Yeah.
just adds some. It adds some gradation. A dragon is going to be more fearful than maybe an ogre, and I love that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And a dragon should add, 3 or 4 wounds to a combat rather than having the chance to just add one if it's facing off against some tiny little human-sized model.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. There was another one on my list of ones that I like. It's a new rule. It's called artillery. And basically, if you have that special rule and you haven't moved since the beginning of your last activation, you're at a -2 to hit when you're being shot at.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the feedback that I've gotten about this has been, yeah, the rule's quite cool, but I mean, the name doesn't really match up to it. Why are these big war machines kind of -2 to hit when they're just sitting still in the open? Somebody put forward the idea they should have called it dug in or
Dug
something like
in.
that, because I think
Yeah.
that's kind of the I think that's kind
That's
of the idea behind the rule, that artillery get there and they park and they dig in and they put up,
Mhm.
some earthworks or whatever. So I like the rule, but I think it could have been maybe explained a little better.
Yeah, it's so they had a similar rule where they got a two, basically a 2 up defense against shooting attacks,
Mm-hmm.
which I felt was a little strong. I mean, artillery in this game can be very strong, and just giving them a natural 2 up defense against shooting attacks. The -2, I'm honestly not sure. What I would say is this does favor more elite armies who can have those qualities of threes
Mm-hmm.
that are hitting these artilleries on fives now.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's how they want. It seems like they're trying to make quality more important. They're trying to make the rules where there is not like this flat. It's like they're removing some of this kind of flat stuff and they're making it a lot more based on some gradations, right? Like a dragon fear 3, some of the roles now where that quality is becoming more important. So
Yes. Which is good.
yeah,
Quality
yeah,
should be important. It's one of the two stats in the game.
yeah, exactly. So and I think even with the fear that you just talked to me, fearless, that now that fearless isn't as important, quality goes a little more up in importance, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm getting it. I'm down with it. I'm down with it. Sure. Yeah.
Well, moving on, I've got Lance as my next positive. I don't think I'll just have a look at the old rule book. I don't think there
Yeah, no
wasn't
Lance.
no
Yeah,
Lance.
no
Okay.
Lance in the old rule book.
So whenever your weapon has the Lance special rule and you charge, your weapon gets AP +2.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of my favorite things, I play human defense force. That's one of my main armies, and I have a bunch of humans on bikes. I use them as cavalry,
Mhm.
and they have lances. And we're going to talk more about that later because it's going to come under the things that I don't like so much, like the
Yeah. Yeah.
changes to impact and rending. However, we're not going to get there yet. I
Right.
like I like for me personally that I feel like my regular humans on motorcycles holding sharp sticks got a little bit better, and I'm very curious to see how much those points are going to be for that special rule upgrade.
Yeah. I think to me, I really like this rule because I play more Age of Fantasy where
Mm-hmm.
Lance and Impact are a much bigger deal in those games.
Yep.
And I think that they are going to, so in the old rules, we haven't seen the units yet, but in the old rules, lances basically gave an impact of 1. So you'd have cavalry getting 2 impacts per unit.
Mm-hmm.
I think now it's just going to be 1 impact, and instead of the lance giving an impact hit, it's going to give a lance hit. And at least from Age of Fantasy perspective, I think this is wonderful. Again, impact ignores quality. And so you have all of these quality 5, quality 4 cavalry that are basically doing the same damage as quality 3 cavalry because they have the same number of impact hits. So
Yep.
I think that they will be halving the impact hits from cavalry and then giving them that lance bonus. So
Yep.
that's again, it's going to really make quality. And I'll tell you, in Age of Fantasy, especially, cavalry, just whether it's quality 3 or quality 5, cavalry units just blow up everything because it's just so many impact hits
Yeah.
that I think for Grimdark it's not quite a big of a deal, but for Age of Fantasy, I
No,
love. Yeah.
certainly not. There isn't a preponderance of cavalry in Grimdark.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we will definitely get back to impact because
Mm-hmm.
I have feelings about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the last kind of special rule that's on my really good like list is stealth. I think the new stealth rule is really, really very good. Now then, so
Very good.
the old stealth rule, enemies targeting this unit get -1 to hit when shooting at it. Cool, fine. But the new one, enemies targeting units where all models have this special rule get -1 to hit when shooting at them from over 12 inches away.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you can't sneak up on me and be right up in my face out in the open and still get that stealth rule.
Yeah, I
You
love
know,
that too.
once you get close enough to me, you're not stealthing anymore. You're just charging.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right.
I
I
think
like it
that's
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good just balance tweak.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not going to make or break a game, but I think it's just a really good balance tweak.
Well, especially in Age of Fantasy, where there's an army, these shadow stalkers, which have just a lot of stealth, that
Mm-hmm.
I think that they needed to tone that down, probably for that specific army. Like when you have a lot of stealth in an army, it it makes, yeah, I think this was a needed rule, and I agree with you, boss. It's a great change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of the end of my special rules discussion on things that I like. But something that I like in general about the new rule book is that it has force organization rules. Now they have been a thing in other rule books in the tournament section specifically, and it's always been very, very clear that they are optional. That's still the case, and I very much like that. But I also like that they're now at the front of the main rules because it's something that kind of comes up more often than I might think it would. People asking, "Oh, can you just take whatever? What's
Mhm.
where's the balance? What do we take?" If people are really keen on having that force organization, they've just come over from GW products, and they're ingrained and no,
Yeah.
I must take my HQ and my 2 troops. They have options that are easy to find that they can use, that their opponent can use as well, or they can just choose to use them themselves. Whatever, it's going to enhance some people's game experience. It won't do jack for mine. I'll kind of take whatever makes thematical sense for me the way that I always do, but I can appreciate that it's going to be good for other gamers.
Exactly. Exactly. I think I like I said, the rule book too. I think even the base rule book, they've added some clarifications on there.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is just a small thing, but on the I just like they're it's still concise, but like I love that whenever they're picking a target for melee, they have in parentheses, no line of sight is needed. In other
Yes.
words, it's clear front and center that you don't need line of sight. And I
Yeah.
love that just adding a few sentences to just, hey, make it crystal clear that,
Yeah.
hey, yeah,
And those,
just charge.
yeah, you're adding a few sentences to halve the amount of posts that I read asking if I need line of sight to charge.
Yes, exactly.
And it's
Exactly.
always been, well, I mean, the rules don't clearly say, but no, the rules say yes, you don't need line of sight to charge. You can infer from context where your enemy is and just charge around the corner and get stuck in,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I think makes thematic sense as well.
Yeah. It's as I know coming from Kings of War myself, and this is the thing from other game systems, line of sight is kind of baked in. And so I did, me and Sam, we started playing, and that's something that caught him off guard
Mm-hmm.
because he's like, oh, but you couldn't see them. And so I love, like I said, it's a little sentence, but it's just helping people level set who are coming from some different systems. So yeah,
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's great.
I think it's indicative of the amount of care and attention that the developers actually do put into this game, which is great considering that they put it out, the basic version, they put it out for free. Like, they've got a good community and they've got good backing on Patreon, and they're committed to making their product better. And in a lot of ways, they are continuing to do that. And I appreciate that a company that I'm financially supporting is doing nice things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100% there.
Yeah.
You're 100% there. Well, Boz, so
Well,
you like how, but you don't like some stuff
yeah.
though.
So having said that, let's get on to, let's get on to how they completely screwed me personally over, shall we? Which I'm sure was their intent all along.
That's right.
All right. So furious is what I am about this change in Furious. Version 2.16. Whenever a model with this special rule charges an enemy, it gets +1 attack with a weapon of your choice. Great. Love it. My orcs that are quality. What are
Yeah.
orcs? Quality 5 or quality 6?
They're quality 4, but they have bad shot, I think, or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Something like that. Anyway, them getting 1 extra attack on the charge was good. It was also a kind of leftover from earlier editions of Warhammer that I really liked as well. For the version 3 rules, whenever a model with this rule charges an enemy, it deals 1 extra hit for each unmodified result of 6 to hit.
Yeah. I mean, that
So
is a massive nerf. So I
it
would say that is
absolutely
no
is.
doubt it is a massive nerf.
Yeah.
Um, I again coming from the age of and see this is the thing with Boz, you play an army where Furious is kind of stock standard,
Mm-hmm.
where I come from Age of Fantasy where Furious, because it's more hand-to-hand focused, it's a lot more powerful that I don't mind it as much with a caveat.
Go
I
on.
would say this. I'm on the fence about it. It all depends on the point changes. I definitely agree that they should be looking at orcs and anything with Furious and probably making some adjustments. Maybe that's also maybe in the orcs, maybe they're just adding an extra attack. So I know like and
Well,
this is
that's absolutely
yeah,
true.
yeah,
That's why we can't get
exactly.
too upset about anything yet.
They could just be giving orcs an extra attack,
Yeah,
which I that could yeah,
which would actually make an extra hit on an unmodified 6 really good.
yeah. It's really I think I think it's going to it's a big nerf. And
Mm,
to me, I've noticed them talking about before is they want to try to make, and this was happening especially in Age of Fantasy, where pretty much charges were just wiping things out, right? Whether it's
yep,
impacts or furious, just whatever, whoever got the charge was just wiping stuff out.
yep.
And I do think they want to make the charge less impactful,
And
where
that's a good idea. You shouldn't be able to one hit kill everything you charge.
yeah, and I think that their thing to Furious is let's stop with the impact and the Furious. I think they want to try to make it so that it's a little more grindy. In other words, yeah, things don't die quite as fast.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll see. I think you're right. Like it's the jury is out with this one because if they don't make some adjustments, especially to like orcs, then that could be a problem. I'll definitely agree with you on that. That they definitely need to make some adjustments on orcs. Yeah.
So yeah, as you say, the jury's out on that one. I'm not going to get too upset until we can actually see what's going on with it. Now,
Mhm.
let's get on to that big can of worms that we kind of half opened before of impact.
Yeah.
So whenever impact was impact X, and whenever a model with that special rule charge, it dealt X automatic melee hits as long as it hit striking range, obviously. And now impact is whenever a model with this special rule charges, it gets X attacks that hit on a 2+. Now, I will be the first to admit that is not a huge change. That just means that 5 times out of 6, I'm going to do exactly the same thing as I would have done with the old rules.
That's right.
However, the dice gods hate me.
Mm.
I'm a dude who with a unit of 10 Terminators way back in fourth or fifth edition lost 9 of them in one
Yeah, I
round.
was the same way. Yeah.
So I can understand that this is kind of this can absolutely come across as me being, or it's me
Hmm.
specific or whatever. I know that this change will have no pun intended, an impact on me. But I can also appreciate that that's kind of intended because, as you say, especially in Age of Fantasy, whoever gets that charge off gets their impact, gets their furious,
Yep. And then
and
get their
there's
normal attacks. I mean, it was
yeah,
cavalry was really a little too powerful. Like they would just blow up things.
mm-hmm.
And I get that cavalry are powerful, but I'm okay with it. If it were me, I would love to have tied impact more. So for me, a lot of their changes, they're trying to really make quality more important. I would
Yes,
have loved if impact would have basically been like +2 to hit based on your quality, so that a quality 5 guy is hitting on a 3. I don't
mm-hmm.
know. Maybe that's a small thing, but I would have loved to have gone a little further connect impact with. But it is impact, so I'm not. I'm generally okay with it. I would say is coming from Age of Fantasy, and this is where me and Boz we just have different perspective, and it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that these rules are like specifically hitting Boz's armies. He's got human defense forces with impact, and he's got orcs, and his guys are like, "Let's screw Boz."
Yeah, yeah. It's like they got together and they looked through my stuff and I'm like, right, we'll get him. We're gonna get him. No, and you know what? It's one of those ones. It is still on my don't like list, but I mean, the more I look at it, the less I feel it should be on there, and the more I feel it should just be on my kind of meh type list. Like it is ridiculously strong. It has had a nerf, but I will be the first to admit that maybe a nerf was needed. My quality 5 guardsman is still going to who charge in on their motorcycles are still going to use those motorcycles to hit a whole bunch of people on a 2+. Like,
Yeah.
it was one of those knee-jerk reactions. Oh, they've messed with my favorite rule again. But I mean, really, truly, I don't think it's going to. I don't think it's going to change the outcome of all that many battles, and it might just make things a bit fairer for Age of Fantasy, which is never a bad thing.
Yeah, I hope that they do adjust some points. Like I said, I'm feeling a lot better if orcs get and we'll see where the points fall, but I think that adjusting points on the armies, which I think is going to come with it, and it may take a little bit of time, but I generally like it, but I do agree that those lancers that you have do need some adjustments one way or another
Yeah,
because they are significantly weaker.
yeah,
And I'll be honest, I think Human Defense Force needs some help because I think they're a weaker army. So hopefully they are giving them some help.
yeah. I mean, they definitely are, and that's all. I mean, to be fair, that's one of the reasons why I play them. I like playing squishy normal humans in a universe
Mhm.
filled with godlike monsters and stuff. It just the challenge of it and the absurdity of it always appeals to me. But it would be nice if you know, I'm
Yeah.
still it's still fairly competitive. My win-loss ratio with them is probably 60-40,
Mhm.
and that's not terrible for a war game, really, truly.
Well, I do think I know I've been playing some Human Defense Force, and when I play them, I'm never impressed with them. I think that that's an army that probably does need to get looked at and
Mm-hmm.
made some adjustments. And I think that's on an army by army level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I think that I'm okay now. It's funny because you're on the fence about some things that I probably don't like more, and we'll get into rending.
Yes, we will. Boy, howdy, will we.
Boy, get into rending.
I've got one more to do before we get into rending, and that's Relentless.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So
Yeah.
old rules Relentless was basically exploding sixes when shooting,
Mhm.
which is all well and good. The new one is exploding sixes when shooting if you've used a hold action. So you can't move and shoot and have your sixes explode.
Mhm.
And that doesn't really strike me as particularly relentless. That kind of
Yeah,
that
I
ki- that
know.
kind that kind of sounds more like a take aim type thing.
It it is, and I think that you're probably with me. You're thinking about Relentless in the terms of 40K fourth
I
edition
absolutely
Advent
am. I
Terminators.
absolutely well more like Gunnery Sergeant Harker who walked
Yeah,
around with a big heavy
exactly.
bolter or something like that. Yeah.
I I'm okay with it. I think that they do. I think in especially Age of Grimdark, they want to make long range heavy weapons a little less powerful, and as long as there's some point adjustments, I'm okay with it. I like it. Like I said, I'm okay with Relentless. Yeah, I don't know, but I guess maybe this does impact Human Defense Force, right? Because don't they have more units that have Relentless? Am I wrong on that, Boz? Am I missing something here? Or
Oh, I'd have to dig through the comparative list. They do have some with Relentless, and it's more, as you say. I'm coming from a place of fourth or fifth edition 40k rules, especially with my beloved gunnery Sergeant Harker, who could run along and shoot his heavy bolter and actually do a bit of damage. I feel that if you're calling something relentless, then make it relentless.
Hmm.
It sounds, yeah, it just strikes me more as a take aim rather than anything else.
That's
Which
right, because
which
technically
which
it's
which is
like
fine. There's nothing wrong with a take aim rule.
they should change it to like non-moving relentless or partially relent or
Yeah,
like relent-ish. Like
yeah, yeah, exactly.
unrelent. Yeah. Maybe that's the name. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like I'm getting more bogged down in semantics than I need to here, but yeah, that
Mhm.
definitely made my don't like list for that particular reason.
Yeah, it can cause confusion. I agree that I think it maybe is semantics, but
Yeah,
semantics matter, and maybe it
absolutely.
is just tweaking that name because
Yeah.
relentless means it has no relent no matter what. So
Yep.
yeah, I get your
So
saying.
so basically, where is it? So this is something that we're moving to the stuff that I'm personally on the fence about now, and I can't talk about rending without also talking about regen. So
That's right.
re regen hasn't changed. It's still basically you get a 5+ get out of jail free card if you can't make your save. Now, first of all, that doesn't apply across the board. There are some particular models who have a regen of 4+ or even 3+, which is just brutal. So one way to get around regen has always been rending.
Yeah.
Now, rending was always particularly weak for me anyway, because playing HDF against robot legions, both, I also have robot legions. They're another army that I play. I often play them against each other. And it's really difficult for my standard guardsmen, which are the main kind of part of my force, to do any real damage
Yeah.
to those robot legions, because even if they do manage to hit their quality 5 flashlight attack and the robot does manage to fail at save, it then gets another save on top
Another
of
say.
that. Yeah. And I mean that's reflected in points and blah blah blah. But for rending, it was always unmodified to hit of 6 on a particular
Hmm.
weapon counts as having AP4 and ignores regen. I might have 1 or 2 weapons in my whole army that have rending, so I was relying on those 6s. And
It's yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
and now for third ed, it's when you're using a weapon with rending, it's an automatic -1 to regen rolls. And if you happen to also roll an unmodified 6, then it counts as having AP4 as well. So I'm on the fence about it because it means that I'm always doing something to hurt that regen roll, which is always a good thing if you're struggling to do any real damage. But I'd have liked it. Basically, it's not so much that I mind the rending change, it's more that I really would have liked to have seen a nerf to regen.
Well, it's so funny because I'm coming from and I think this is a problem we're going to talk about a little further about army-wide rules
Mm-hmm.
and why it's bad to have army-wide rules as powerful as regen. Because I play high elf fleets that are just rending everywhere,
Yep.
and so I just murder I murder things with regen. But it's a problem in that this is for me. I think that probably I know that's robot legions, that's their thing, but I've seen this in other game systems when you have an army-wide powerful rule like regen, and you have other armies that have army-wide powerful rules like rending,
Mm-hmm.
that I just feel there needs to, if it were me, I would look at robot legions and actually look at high elf fleets. I play high elf fleets, so I'm talking about possibly some nerfs to my own army, to be very clear. And I think that they need to tone down the amount of regen and rend across. I don't think that army should have all regen or just tons of rending. I think
Mm-hmm.
that it needs to be more specialized, or maybe make the robot legions. I would have loved if regen was a regen X,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
I think that's really where I prefer to go, is just regen X. Then those regular robots are getting regen 6s, and maybe the really powerful robots are getting regen 4s or something. I don't know. They have to, but I'm just saying that I I but I don't know that an entire army should have a rule like regen. I know that's not. I think the robot legions can possibly get something better, but because you have these regen and you have rend, these two powerful rule and counter, you really should try to balance the amount of,
Yeah.
and I know this is getting a little beyond it, but it's just for me something, because I think that the rending didn't go far enough. I really would have liked to have seen rending on the AP3. That would have made, again, that armor 2 up a little more powerful.
Yeah.
um but then again, like I said, I play high elf fleets, and I tell you, when you roll those sixes in high elf fleets, I mean, it's almost unstoppable, right? I
Oh
mean, you
yeah,
could
yeah,
just kill everything.
yeah.
So that's probably I would say I'm more on the fence. I for rending, I would have preferred if it was nerfed a little more, and regen to get a regen X, and then yeah.
Yeah. So my thing with regen, ideally for me, I think it would have been um you take your save or you take the regen, whatever's better,
Mm,
rather than getting a save and then an extra save on top.
that's a good point.
I wouldn't have minded the 5+ regen if that was instead of your save. If your save was 5+ and you got AP 2'd, then you'd still have a regen. Fine.
Yeah.
If your save's 6+, but you've got a regen, cool, take your regen. Whatever.
Mhm.
If your save is 3+ or 2+ and you have regen and there's no AP, cool, you take your one save, and if you fail that, if you roll a 1 or a 2, then you're gone.
I
I
like that. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, it's
I
it's it's having the extra save that really bugs me about regen.
mhm. Yeah, I think and we will see what they do. I think for me it's I think regen is just such a powerful rule like rending that they shouldn't, like I said, I don't think entire armies, everyone in the army should have regen. Or if it is, it should be a regen like 6 up or something.
Yeah,
I think that may be, I think it should just be an ultra specialized. It's kind of like giving everyone sniper in an army. Hey, this army, everyone has
yeah,
sniper.
exactly. Like
It's like, yeah.
the galaxy is awash with regen, and it's awash with rending. It's as you say, it should be much more special and much more specialized.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so what about poison? I know you. What do you think about poison?
Well,
It's
I was
interesting.
I was on the fence about poison. I like that it's now different from blast because poison. Okay, whenever you roll an unmodified to hit result of 6 while firing this weapon, that hit is multiplied by 3. Cool, that's blast.
Mhm.
And now it's where is it? When you take hits from a weapon with that special rule, you must re-roll successful defense rolls of 6 when blocking hits.
Mhm.
Like it's a bit. I don't really care about it one way or the other, except for noting and noticing that it's now different from Blast. So instead of having two special rules that were pretty much exactly the same, Poison is now its own
Yeah,
thing. Other than that, I don't really have an opinion on it, but I want to hear yours.
I like it. I think that I've noticed this that elite armies in the past editions have just had a lot of problems because everything always gets a save. Honestly, quality six, like armor 6 in this game in the previous edition was terrific. Like it makes AP, and that's we're going to get into cover rules, but I think that high AP weapons just weren't what they should be. And I think that poison is a way of clearing out a lot of chaff easily. I love that it's a specialized rule, that it's an anti-chaff things that like, no, we're going to murder these chaffs. And I don't care if you roll a few more sixes.
Yeah.
So I like it. I love that they are, again, they're making armor a lot more important and they're making AP a lot more important. And
Mm-hmm.
poison, I think, helps stop this kind of glass cannony thing I think that they were going for. I like it. Now they do need to change points. I will agree to that, that they probably need to maybe add it places and subtract it places and adjust points. But as a general rule, I do like it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with the updated Army Forge. I'm looking forward to getting in there and having a look at all these special rules and comparing their points to what they used to be and seeing kind of what's been tweaked and where.
I agree.
Well, in terms of going through the things I like and don't like and I'm on the fence about, that's pretty much it. There are a couple of things that I don't really get, like the new aircraft rules. In fact, the aircraft rules in general, they don't.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really go into when they can shoot. It says they have to move in a straight line,
Mm-hmm.
30 to 36 inches, and it may not change its direction at any point. And if it goes off table, the activation ends, but it doesn't say anything about at what point they can actually shoot.
Yeah,
So I don't know if I've missed something in the rest of the rules anywhere else, or if it's an oversight or whatever. Anyway, I don't use aircraft. I despise
mm,
using aircraft in a war game of the scale that this is supposed to be in. It was one of the worst things that they added to Warhammer. They started adding stuff like that in sixth, I think, and
yeah,
it just
fifth edition, late
yeah,
fifth.
and it was one of the things that really drove me away.
I'm completely agreeing with you. I think that aircrafts should just there should be no aircraft in this game. It's just everything's a skimmer,
Yep.
and I know that that's not quote realistic. But I just think that it's kind of like they're trying to fit a square hole in a square in a round peg.
Yeah.
That's where I feel aircraft should be.
Yeah. Like
Um,
you can have it be something like, oh, there's a bombardment that happens off table and I get to roll for it once a game or something like that. That could
yeah,
represent aircraft really well.
well, and that could be a skimmer that could have that rule, a
Yeah.
bombing run,
Yeah, sure.
right?
Why not? Why not?
Yeah, and I know that's not great, but I'll die on this hill,
Yeah.
because I saw it really hurt fifth edition 40K that
Yeah.
this game isn't meant to have like that aircraft just don't fit in the game so well. And I just prefer if everything gone to skimmers, give them a bombard run, give them something to extrapolate that.
If you
Um,
must.
if they must. I know, I definitely agree with you there. Or just everything's a skimmer, and I
Yeah.
know that's yeah. I mean, that's the best I can say about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, huh.
Yeah. Well, we're going on for time, but talk to me a bit about line of sight because I've always only used true line of sight and I never really kind of got why I might need anything else. But they've introduced two different ways to use line of sight in this edition, and you seem to know more about that than I do.
I love it. Love this, and this is probably where I come from, Kings of War, and where it is another model agnostic system where they are starting. And this is something that so in the page they now have basic line of sight. They now have top-down line of sight and volumetric, which is similar. I think to me, let's talk about top-down because I think this is the one that's really going to be used a lot.
Mhm.
Where what they're doing, so in the if you look at the old rulebook, everything is assigned they give suggestions about base sizes. Hey, infantry should be on X, a 20 meter to a 40 meter base, right? Cavalry should be on this sort of base, but there was no standard recommendation for height. And in these rules, they have a top down line of sight where now they are auto assigning heights. They're saying things like swarms. They're basically taking the Kings of War height system, which is great, and they're almost just porting it into this game, which is wonderful. So in here, not only are they giving very, very good recommendations for what size, for what basically the width and the length of a unit should be, they're now giving specifications on the height of a unit. And that is very important in a model agnostic system. That's huge, right? Like, the thing is that like, and this happened in early 40K. I don't know if you remember it, where true line of sight can be abused. I'll never forget that in tournaments, I saw the squatting Eldar dreadnoughts, right? The
Oh
Eldar
yeah,
dreadnoughts
yeah.
were, and no joke, this is high level tournaments. They were literally modifying their Eldar dreadnoughts so that they were squatting. Why? Because in true line of sight, that's going to give them an advantage. And this is why I always say, if OPR really wants to be a highly competitive game, they needed to do this. They needed to have a standardized height system. So I'll just go through it. They give some guidelines here. Height 1 is things like swarms, so like rat swarms. Height 2 is infantry and artillery. Height 3 is large infantry, cavalry, and chariots. Height 4 is large cavalry, monsters, vehicles. Height 5 is large monsters and giants, and height 6 are titans. Now, in Kings, like I said, they have literally ported over the Kings of War height system from it. They also, that if something is on a hill, the other thing is before the game, you determine what everything the height is. And also on the terrain, you assign a height value to the terrain. That just makes everything so much clearer that again, if we're starting to talk about high level tournaments, this is what OPR needed. if you need this sort of specificity when it comes to high level tournaments. So I love the top down line of sight. I think it's a great addition. I think that this, especially when we start really seeing this game get ultra competitive, this is going to be a standard system. Because remember, this game is model agnostic. GW can get away with true line of sight because they require certain models. But in this sort of game where you can use any model, they did need to start standardizing not just their width and their length, but they also needed to standardize the height.
That's actually a fantastic point. Like, you can use anything as anything and say that's what this is. Yeah. Like, outside of a tournament setting, I just rely on my opponent not to be a jerk about things like that. But yeah, there's no reason why you can't be using OPR for high-end tournaments. And as you say, this is in a model agnostic system. I hadn't kind of realized until you'd spelled it out. But yeah, it's really important to be able to know how tall something is.
And that it's agreed upon before. And they mentioned that in the rules. At the agreement, you assign everything, all the terrain, a height value. We did it all the time in Kings of War. It's not hard. And I love that they've provided a table, the height 1 to height 6. It's terrific.
That's a very kind of role-playing game thing as well. Like, it's your size in D&D or your silhouette value in Edge of the Empire or something like that. It's not some newfangled thing they've come up with. They've taken something good from a different type of system and implemented it into their own one, and that's great.
And I love that they're thinking, and this is how OPR should be thinking. The way this game truly explodes is by becoming, it's got to be a competitive game. It's got to be a polished competitive game. And I think being model agnostic, it's not going to work with true line of sight. And so I think I could see this being the standard when we really start talking about OPR becoming really dominating the tournament scene.
So, yeah. Well, we're going quite long today, and that's fine. So in, say, a minute or so, give us your initial summing up thoughts on version 3.
I love it. I think that the only thing I would have loved to have seen changed is indirect. I would have loved if they would have modified indirect to make it so that if the unit shooting indirect couldn't see the target, it got a -1 to it. I just don't like indirect in the sense that it flattens out the battlefield.
Yeah.
That's my only tweak.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. There's no reason at all you should be shooting with your full quality if you can't see your target. Or, a -1 to hit would have made more sense than a -1 to hit after moving.
Yeah, which is almost never. I mean,
yeah, exactly. You're going to park your artillery or whatever, your mortar team or whatever it is, behind some cover, and they're going to stay there for the whole game.
Yeah, other than indirect not getting that change, I pretty much like everything, with the caveat that we do need to see the new point systems.
Yes.
But if the points are adjusted, I'm loving this new edition.
Yep, I absolutely agree. I think it's, as I said before, it's indicative of the amount of time and effort and money that they're pouring into the development of this game, and it's gone from something quite small and niche within a small and niche community to something that more and more people are coming to and getting driven to from others, from the bloat of other systems that we'll talk about in a different episode. And yeah, I want to see the points for these rules. I'm really looking forward to when they drop, and we're gonna talk about them on a different episode, no doubt. And also, I want to get a good handful of games in with my various armies against various other armies and really see how it all goes. But I'm really impressed and very hopeful that it's going to keep on getting better, because there's always things that can be improved on.
Yeah, and there's so much, like you said, we're going over time. We could talk for hours, but I do want to mention one other change that I love is cover is now giving a +1 defense rather than
hallelujah.
Terrific. That again is making it so that armor actually matters in this game a lot more. So
it just makes so much more sense.
We have to cut it short, but I had to throw that in there. Great change on the cover changes. All right. Sorry,
absolutely.
I'll stop.
Yeah, well, this is Daniel. I've been Boz Connolly, and this is Any War Game Anytime. Check us out in various places. We've got a YouTube channel starting up, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks a lot.